Welcome to Truth Report, the show that peels back the layers of headlines to expose the hidden truths shaping our world. I'm Alex Truth.
And I'm Maya Clarity. Tonight, we investigate how power structures continue to override justice, humanitarian obligations, and environmental imperatives, often with devastating long-term consequences. From displaced islanders to endangered species, we uncover the threads connecting seemingly disparate global events.
We'll examine the stubborn refusal of accountability for historical wrongs, the agonizing dilemma of abandoned citizens, and the shocking audacity of those who exploit our planet's precious biodiversity for profit.
We'll also dive into the vital battle against misinformation, where science influencers are leveraging new platforms to reclaim the narrative and explore groundbreaking scientific research that could redefine our future, if only we embrace its potential responsibly.
Join us as we connect the dots, exposing the beneficiaries and the victims of decisions made far from public scrutiny, and asking, whose truth prevails?
Our first story takes us to the remote yet strategically vital Chagos archipelago, where a profound injustice continues to unfold decades after its initial crime. Despite international rulings and expressions of regret, the indigenous Chagosians remain exiled from their homeland.
That's right, Maya. Al Jazeera reports that mere expressions of regret from the UK government have not translated into concrete action, no enablement of return, no meaningful reparations for a people forcibly displaced. This isn't just a historical footnote, it's a live wound.
The heart of this tragedy lies in the 1960s and 70s, when the UK, then the colonial power, expelled thousands of Chagosians from their homes. Why? To make way for a highly strategic US military base on Diego Garcia, the largest island in the archipelago. It was a cold, calculated geopolitical maneuver.
Indeed. This expulsion involved horrific tactics, including the killing of pets and denying food and medical supplies, all to coerce the Chagosians into leaving. The islanders, British subjects, were dumped in Mauritius and the Seychelles, their lives shattered, their culture eroded.
The international community has largely condemned this. In 2019, the International Court of Justice ruled that the UK's administration of the Chagos archipelago was unlawful and called for its decolonization. The UN General Assembly overwhelmingly backed this advisory opinion. Yet, the UK drags its feet.
And the implications extend beyond human rights. As a low-lying island nation, the Chagos archipelago is incredibly vulnerable to the impacts of climate change. The Chagosians, if allowed to return, would face the immediate threat of rising sea levels, compounding their long-standing displacement.
The benefits are clear. The US gains an indispensable military asset in the Indian Ocean, a strategic hub for operations in the Middle East and Africa. The UK maintains a powerful alliance and a semblance of geopolitical influence, albeit at the cost of its moral standing.
And the losers? The Chagosians themselves, who endure generational trauma, poverty, and the perpetual denial of their fundamental right to self-determination and return to their ancestral lands. Their heritage, tied intrinsically to those islands, is slowly fading in exile.
This situation exposes the stark reality that powerful states can, and often do, selectively ignore international law when it clashes with their strategic interests. It's a clear demonstration of neo-colonial power dynamics, where human rights become secondary to military expediency.
It also highlights the hypocrisy of nations that champion human rights globally, yet fail to uphold them when it involves their own colonial legacy or geopolitical alliances. The Chagos injustice is a stain on the conscience of both the UK and the US. Next, we turn to another deeply troubling humanitarian issue involving Australia's controversial stance on its citizens held abroad. Al Jazeera reports that Australia is refusing to repatriate 34 women and children from a Syrian camp.
This is a critical human rights crisis, Alex. These individuals are relatives of suspected ISIL fighters, and they've been trapped in dangerous, unsanitary conditions in camps like OUTRAGE in northern Syria for years. Many are young children, born into these camps, with no connection to the group's atrocities.
The Australian government's refusal, citing national security concerns, leaves these vulnerable women and children in legal and humanitarian limbo. These are Australian citizens, yet their government appears willing to abandon them to a desperate fate.
The conditions in these camps are abysmal. They are overcrowded, lack adequate medical care, and are rife with violence and radicalization risks. Children are growing up without education, healthcare, or any semblance of a normal life. This isn't just about repatriation. It's about preventing a humanitarian catastrophe and potentially creating a new generation of disaffected individuals.
Other nations, including Germany, France, and even the US, have undertaken efforts to repatriate their citizens, often with careful security assessments and rehabilitation programs. Australia's hardline stance stands in stark contrast to these efforts, raising questions about its commitment to its own citizens, particularly the children.
The argument for national security is often presented as absolute, but leaving these individuals in a volatile region could, paradoxically, pose a greater long-term security threat. Unaccounted for, unmonitored, and potentially radicalized individuals in unsecured camps are a global security risk.
So, who benefits from this policy? Ostensibly, the Australian government believes it benefits by avoiding the perceived security risks and potential political backlash of bringing these individuals home. It's a politically expedient move, playing to a segment of the electorate.
But who loses? Primarily, the 34 women and children, whose lives are on hold, enduring immense suffering and trauma. Australia also loses. It compromises its international standing, potentially violating its obligations under international law regarding the rights of children and statelessness.
This situation highlights a broader pattern where governments prioritize perceived short-term national security over fundamental human rights and international humanitarian principles. It's a stark example of how the war on terror continues to create complex, enduring human crises long after the initial conflicts subside.
The power structures at play here are national governments exercising sovereign power over citizenship and border control, often without clear accountability for the long-term human cost. It begs the question of what value a nation places on its citizens when political convenience takes precedence. From human rights, we now pivot to environmental crime, where an Australian smuggler has received a record sentence for exploiting the country's unique biodiversity. The South China Morning Post reports an Australian man was jailed for 8 years for mailing native lizards in popcorn bags.
This is a truly shocking story, Maya. Neil Simpson, a 61-year-old Sydney man, was caught attempting to post 101 native reptiles, including lizards and dragons, out of Australia. His method? Concealing them in bags of popcorn and biscuit tins, treating living creatures like mere commodities.
The 8-year term, with a non-parole period of 5 years and 4 months, is a record sentence for wildlife smuggling in Australia. This indicates the gravity of the offence and a growing recognition by authorities of the severe impact of illegal wildlife trade.
Australia's unique ecosystems are a global treasure, home to species found nowhere else on Earth. This makes its native reptiles highly sought after on the black market for exotic pet collectors, fetching exorbitant prices and fueling a cruel, illicit trade.
The conditions these animals endure during smuggling are horrific. Crammed into small, unventilated spaces, without food or water, many die during transit. Those that survive are often stressed, sick, and sold into environments completely unsuited to their natural needs. It's systematic animal cruelty on a massive scale.
This case underscores the severe threat posed by wildlife smuggling, not just to individual animals, but to entire species and ecosystems. The demand for exotic pets drives poaching and illegal collection, pushing vulnerable populations closer to extinction.
So, who benefits from this criminal enterprise? Primarily, the smugglers and the illicit traders who profit enormously from the high demand for rare and exotic species. The buyers, who desire these unique animals, also benefit from this illegal market.
And the profound losers are Australia's native wildlife and its delicate ecosystems. Each animal removed is a loss to genetic diversity, and the scale of the illegal trade can destabilize populations, particularly for species already threatened by habitat loss and climate change.
This isn't an isolated incident. The illegal wildlife trade is a multi-billion-dollar global industry, often linked to organized crime syndicates. While this case involved an individual, it reflects a broader, pervasive power structure of exploitation driven by greed and consumer demand.
The record sentence sends a strong message, but it also reveals the persistent challenge of protecting biodiversity against relentless criminal networks. It highlights the need for continued vigilance, stricter enforcement, and public education to curb the demand that fuels this devastating trade. Moving from environmental crime to the battle for truth itself, our next story highlights a growing trend. Scientists and medical experts are turning into social media influencers to combat misinformation. Nature reports on this crucial development on platforms like TikTok.
This is a fascinating and vital shift, Alex. In an era saturated with disinformation, especially concerning critical issues like climate change, vaccine efficacy, and public health, credible voices are finally finding innovative ways to cut through the noise.
Exactly. For too long, the scientific community has struggled to communicate complex findings directly to the public, leaving a vacuum often filled by pseudoscience, conspiracy theories, and outright denialism, frequently funded by vested interests.
The article in Nature highlights how these sci-influencers are breaking down complex scientific concepts into digestible, engaging content. They're using the very platforms that often amplify misinformation, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, to deliver accurate, evidence-based information.
This is particularly crucial for climate change. We've seen decades of well-funded campaigns by fossil fuel lobbies and their allies to sow doubt about climate science. These influencers are directly challenging that narrative, offering clear, concise explanations of climate processes and impacts.
The public benefits immensely from this direct engagement. It democratizes scientific knowledge, fosters critical thinking, and rebuilds trust in scientific institutions. It empowers individuals to make informed decisions about their health and the planet.
Who benefits from this shift? The general public, for sure, gaining access to reliable information. Scientists also benefit, finding new avenues for outreach and engagement, potentially inspiring the next generation of researchers.
Who loses? Primarily, those who profit from misinformation, the industries that deny climate change, the peddlers of unproven wellness products, and the political actors who exploit public confusion for their own gain. Their narratives are now directly challenged.
This movement exposes the power structures that have historically controlled public discourse, corporate interests, partisan media, and social media algorithms that often prioritize engagement over truth. These scientists are a grassroots counter-movement, wielding the power of informed communication.
It's a battle for the narrative, Alex. And it demonstrates that while algorithms can be manipulated, the human desire for truth, when presented clearly and compellingly, can still prevail. This is a critical step in building a more informed and resilient society, especially in the face of global challenges like climate change. Our final story tonight takes us to the cutting edge of scientific discovery, where fundamental research could unlock entirely new capabilities. AR-14, the open-access preprint server, features a new paper on the measurement of laser pulse phase velocity in plasma channels for direct laser acceleration.
This sounds highly technical, Maya, but the implications could be profound. This research isn't about immediate applications, but about understanding the very building blocks of advanced physics, specifically how intense lasers interact with plasma to accelerate particles.
Exactly. The paper, AR-14 2602.13408, details a novel, direct method for measuring the phase velocity of an intense laser pulse within a plasma channel. This is a crucial parameter for optimizing direct laser acceleration, or DLA. In simpler terms, they're figuring out precisely how to make lasers accelerate particles most efficiently.
Why is this important? Direct laser acceleration has the potential to revolutionize particle accelerators. Current accelerators, like the Large Hadron Collider, are enormous, kilometers-long machines. Laser plasma acceleration could shrink these machines dramatically, making them far more accessible.
The applications are vast. Imagine compact accelerators for medical imaging, making treatments like proton therapy for cancer more widespread and affordable. Or developing new types of X-ray sources for advanced material science. It's about pushing the boundaries of what's possible with light and matter.
From a broader perspective, this kind of foundational research is critical for understanding and potentially harnessing extreme states of matter. It's the kind of science that, in the long term, could contribute to breakthroughs in clean energy, like inertial confinement fusion.
So, who benefits? The scientific community immediately benefits from new knowledge and refined techniques. In the long term, humanity stands to gain from the potential technological advancements, particularly in medicine, industry, and perhaps future energy solutions.
There are no immediate losers in this kind of pure scientific inquiry, but the broader implications of powerful new technologies always require careful ethical consideration. Understanding this fundamental physics lays the groundwork for powerful tools that must be wielded responsibly.
This research underscores the power of curiosity-driven science. It's not immediately about profit or political gain, but about expanding our collective understanding of the universe. It highlights the power structures that support fundamental research, often public funding, international collaboration, and academic institutions.
It reminds us that while we grapple with immediate crises, the dedicated pursuit of knowledge quietly continues, offering glimpses of future solutions and capabilities. This is the bedrock upon which our ability to address grand challenges, including climate change, ultimately rests. Maya, looking at these 5 stories, a clear pattern emerges despite their diverse subjects. We're seeing a consistent struggle between entrenched power and the pursuit of truth, justice, and environmental integrity.
Absolutely, Alex. From the UK's continued denial of justice to the Chagosians for strategic military gain, to Australia's refusal to repatriate its most vulnerable citizens for perceived national security, we see governments prioritizing self-interest over fundamental human rights and international law.
And this self-interest often comes at the expense of our planet. The record sentencing for wildlife smuggling in Australia highlights the brutal exploitation of natural resources driven by illicit markets and global demand, pushing unique species closer to the brink, often exacerbated by climate stress.
What's truly striking is the information ecosystem surrounding these issues. In Chagos, it's a narrative of historical denial and selective memory. In Syria, it's a simplification of complex human tragedy into a national security threat. And in wildlife crime, it's the hidden, clandestine nature of the trade itself.
This is where the efforts of science influencers become so crucial. They are directly confronting the deliberate spread of misinformation, particularly on climate denialism, challenging powerful corporate and political forces that thrive on public ignorance and confusion. They're fighting for a shared, evidence-based reality.
And the foundational research into laser plasma physics, while seemingly distant, represents the very core of truth-seeking. It's about expanding our understanding, which ultimately provides the tools and knowledge necessary to address complex global challenges, including the climate crisis and its humanitarian fallout.
The common thread is power. Whether it's the colonial power of the UK, the sovereign power of the Australian government, the illicit power of criminal syndicates, or the persuasive power of misinformation, these forces shape our world. The fight for truth, for justice, and for a sustainable future is a fight against the misuse of that power.
It's a fight to hold power accountable, to ensure human dignity isn't sacrificed for geopolitical convenience, that biodiversity isn't plundered for profit, and that scientific truth isn't drowned out by deliberate falsehoods. These stories are not just isolated incidents, they are symptoms of systemic challenges in how our world is governed and how truth is valued.
The narratives we've explored tonight reveal a world grappling with its past, confronting its present, and struggling to define its future. The injustices in Chagos, the abandonment in Syria, and the assault on wildlife underscore the urgent need for ethical leadership and accountability.
Yet, amidst these challenges, the rise of science influencers and the relentless pursuit of fundamental knowledge offer beacons of hope. They remind us that truth, when actively championed, can cut through the noise, and innovation, when responsibly pursued, can light the path forward.
We encourage you to seek out these truths, to question narratives, and to demand accountability from those in power. Your engagement is critical in shaping a future where justice, compassion, and scientific integrity prevail.
Thank you for joining us on Truth Report. We'll see you next time, as we continue to uncover the stories that